Howdy, cowpokes. So, I was going to have some great, well, I don't know how great it would be, but I was going to have some, break-in mileage footage and stuff like that. I got 125, 130 miles on it. So I know people feel differently because they were taught many, many years ago that you got to do the hard break-in. You can't go over 5,000 RPMs until 600 miles, and then you can't go over 8,000 until 1,000. Without getting into a long debate, that really is not the case. It hasn't been the case for 40 years. Modern machining, manufacturing processes, metallurgy, lubrication advancements, all the things that have changed over the years. You don't want to sit there and take a brand new motor and just bounce it off the rev limiter out of the showroom floor. However, that 600 miles slow, easy break-in. Motorcyclists, go look at Motorcyclist online, Motorcyclist magazine. They took two identical new motors, or two bikes. Obviously, you can't do it just with a motor. And they went out and did two break-in methods. One slow and steady by the book. The other one basically running down the interstate for 600 miles at or near red line. Just wailing on it. And at the end, they did oil chemical analysis, sent it away to a lab. They took the motors apart, took them to a machine, a motor builder, and tore them apart and took exact measurements of all the different pieces and did dyno charts and things to measure the output, leak down tests, compression tests. They found no discernible difference between the one that was beat on from day one versus the one that was, broken in slowly as per the manual, which has not changed since 1978. So their conclusion was, don't go out there and just wail on your brand new bike. But the notion that you have to baby the bike for 600 to 1,000 miles is it's not true. It hasn't been true in decades. So that said, I ride it normal. I go out and have a little bit of fun, but I don't do hard launches. I don't go over 8,000 or 9,000 RPMs. I just ride it around town like I would ride a bike. Once it gets over 100 miles, I figure at that point the pistons have gone up and down, a million times? Like literally. And so at that point, I just get on it a little bit. The power on this thing is phenomenal. Now, as I said, I was hoping to get some good video. The problem is this GoPro Hero 9 Black is a piece of shit. And it was good when I first got it. Had a few lockups and things here and there. Not been happy with their software. But the software, the Windows software they gave up on years ago. So you can only get like GPS and telemetry data, like to show the map of the track and your G's and elevation and all that stuff, speed. You can only get that through the phone app, which means I'd have to be sitting here on my iPhone Pro 13 Pro, which is just a 6-inch screen, trying to import over Wi-Fi and then edit 60 gigabytes of video on my phone, which is freaking retarded. If you're going to do that, you're going to do it on your MacBook or a PC or something. So already kind of pissing me off with GoPro that they're just freaking lazy. They're relying on their name to sell things, and the hardware, when it works great. The problem is now, since they've been issuing firmware updates because the lockup and freezing, which means you have to pull the battery, corrupts the videos, you got to reformat the card, reset it. It's been getting worse and worse, and every time they put out a firmware fix to fix that, it actually makes it worse. And so right now I can't get video out of it. It locked up on me 6 times today. Literally 1 minute it was 92% battery. 3 minutes later it was 2% battery. It's just all over the place, locking up. So I couldn't get any footage. So I'm doing this with my phone. I'm going to throw that thing in the freaking trash. And I will not buy another GoPro product. Just too many problems with their products. Which isn't surprising. Their CEO is a real tool and almost bankrupted the company, running it into the ground, using it as his personal piggy bank. So anyway, back to the bike instead of me bitching about GoPro. I'm just kind of cheesed because I would have really liked to have some good video, but I'm going to have to now go spend $400 on a freaking camera to replace that year-old camera that doesn't work for crap. So anyway, I just went over to Cycle Gear, tooled around a bit, just threw a quick tank protector on it. That's just temporary. I just got whatever cheap one they had just to protect it in the interim. And then I'm going to get the tech spec with the side pieces to keep it from rubbing on the tank and give me a little more grip and break up a little bit of the blue. Got the swing arm spools. Other than that, I haven't really done anything other than just kind of ride it around a little bit. The power on this thing is really, really good. Here's the settings I'm running. Let's get the dash. So we're running it in mode B, which I've set to power 2, which gives you full power, but it softens the delivery just a little bit. A is a little too like a light switch. And with the fuel cut, it's really abrupt and annoying. And frankly, if you're going down the interstate, it's probably okay, but it makes it very herky and jerky. And then when you get to when you're on the side of the tire, it's brutal. You breathe on the throttle and it just wants to lunge, or it wants to go into engine braking. It's just too abrupt. Traction control set for 3, slide control set for 2, engine braking management set to 1, quick shifters on setting 1, up and down. Lift control I have set for 2. I'm not big on wheelies, so I'm trying to play with these settings and get the most forward thrust and acceleration I can get. And I don't care if the wheel comes up a little bit and skims the ground, but I'm not a wheelie guy. I'm not out there stunting. I'm not out there trying to look cool. You see a lot of guys just, doing wheelies on the interstate, whatever. A lot of them, they can do wheelies, and that's a skill I don't have, but a lot of them you probably get them on the track and they're going to be sitting in a ditch somewhere as soon as they see, what's that thing in the road? Oh, that's a turn. I probably should have practiced that. It's hard to do that when you're always on one wheel. But the power delivery and my impressions of this thing so far, suspension's very firm. Got to soften it up. I've got to go over to GMD, CompuTrack, and get that dialed in. The power is really, really nice. The exhaust note is good for stock exhaust. It doesn't sound as good when it's in neutral, but once you're riding down the road and that exhaust valve opens up, for stock, it's okay. I will get the Y pipe and an ECU flash, but right now, it's got so much stupid power. The bike that it feels like, it sounds a lot like my Tuono V4, and the power output is about the same. These things stock are usually putting around low 70s as far as torque, but 165-ish, 168, somewhere in that range as far as horsepower, and that is on par with where my my Tuono was. The Tuono had more torque, had 80 foot-pounds of torque, but it has that kind of power delivery. It also feels, this crossplane is a weird animal. It reminds me a bit of my Ducati 1198. Now it has nowhere near the torque. The Ducati was putting down 91 foot-pounds at the wheel, that's a lot. That's more than most leader bikes. But it wasn't, the power delivery is it doesn't have the low down grunt, but the mid-range grunt is pretty stout. You just flick the gas in first at 50 miles an hour and 60 miles an hour, and the front just wants to fly up. When I got on the gas in second gear, as it was approaching 13,000 RPMs, and you're at 110 or 115 or whatever, it was just picking the front end up, and then the wheelie control put it back down. It's a cool bike. Those bars are not as uncomfortable as I thought. As long as I don't rest my weight on them, which you're really not supposed to do anyway, it really was not that bad. I may be able to get by with those bars without doing the Healy bars, which is good, because the money I save, I got to go buy a new friggin' camera. So, that's it so far. Haven't gotten it up to the mountains, just a little back roads and interstate, and just kind of, breaking it in, letting it do its engine braking, running up through the gears, trying not to hold a steady RPM and stuff. But the acceleration on this thing is just savage. When you give it the gas, man, it just wants to go. I would say, when I was on some side roads heading over to cycle gear, just flicking this thing to a third throttle, it was accelerating at least as hard as the ZX6R was full wide open. The difference in power output is really staggering. 40 horsepower, 45, whatever it is, peak. The difference at the wheel, it doesn't really tell the whole story. It really just wants to go. So that's what I've got so far. Those are my initial impressions. I need to get it up to the mountains maybe next weekend and give it a proper shakedown. But so far, it's very planted. It's confidence inspiring. The electronics feel good. They're not intrusive. The Aprilia, when I would come up and the wheel would come up, it would kind of slam it down, and then it would pick it up, then the power would pick it up again, and you'd go down the road in second, the front popping up and down. This seems to kind of come up, and then it puts it back down, or it'll skim. It's a lot more refined. It's a lot more smooth. And I still haven't gotten through all the settings yet. So that's the update so far. I'm really impressed with this thing. It's a really, really sick bike. So anyway, next time we'll get some footage on the road. Hopefully I'll have a camera by then.